Hello and welcome to part 2 of this Burman combo that 1x12 combo that we're working on. So we're going to recap this amp, and you can see I've already done a couple there, the 220s I've done. So I've got these 32s to do. I've got 2 of those, and in my pocket here I've got the capacitors that are going in there. We just open them up. I bought the 220s as well. The reason for that is I ordered some for the Vox 125 that we're going to be servicing. If you've seen that video before, if not, just have a scroll down the video page, you'll see it there. I'll probably leave a link in the description. But I borrowed 2 of the capacitors from that Vox 125 project that we'd bought, so I've had to order 2 more. And we've got these F&Ts which we're going to use for the 32s. Now these have been ordered from Modulus Amplification. I get quite a lot of parts from Modulus Amplification. It's a place in Scotland there, and if you look at the links at the top of the YouTube page, you'll actually see the link for their website. So go on there and have a look. They've got quite a lot of stuff and it's all reasonably priced. So he's going there and he's going there. The capacitors have arrived for these smaller ones here and the bias capacitor there. So look, we'll get started, and we'll start with changing these. Right, we've got those capacitors in, and I had to remove the pink wire that was going from there across to here because these capacitors are shorter in length. The orange wire reached and the black wire reached okay, but the pink wouldn't reach. It was about 1 inch too short. I don't quite know how we ended up with that, but obviously the part of it would be the capacitor, but it's just seemed to be a very short wire, so I've had to put this red wire in there, this single, and this is 18 gauge wire that I've got in there, so I've had to put that in. Managed to get it in neatly. So I didn't have any pink. Well, I did, but it wasn't very good quality, so I wasn't putting that in. You have to be really careful with this wire they've used on this Burman, because the plastic melts very easily on them. Don't know what wire they use. The amplifier's superb, but the wire's not wonderful, so you have to be a bit careful with that. But there, anyway, they're in. So what I'm going to do now, before I do any more work to this amp, I'm just going to fire it up on the Variac and make sure that there's no issues with any of this. Then what we're going to do is replace these capacitors and the bias capacitor, and we'll run it up again. And I'm going to turn the bias so it already is cold though, because these are only biased at about 7 watts. But I'm going to turn the adjuster completely cold before I put those new KT77s in, and then I'm going to bring the bias up gently. Now the other thing that's not working on this amp, apparently it's intermittent, the pilot light. So we've got to try and have a look at that. But it looks a bit of a sealed unit to me, that does. So I don't know. I'm going to have a look at that. But anyway, that is a problem. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I can confirm that because when we were testing it before we opened it up, it was working. But when we got it on the bench, it wasn't working. So we need to look at that. But I think once we've changed these capacitors and the bias capacitor, I think we'll be okay. And then it's just a matter of checking around for any leakage. And I can't see any of these. I mean, you occasionally get these leaking, but very rare. And we're not going to be taking those out unless we absolutely have to, because they're superb. This capacitor here, this 10 microfarad, I'm going to test this for leakage, because I think that's only on that it's on that attenuator. There's something on the back on those sockets. I can't remember. Let me just have a look which it's on, which one that is. I think it's on that alt. It's something to do with this, or is it on? Oh no, it's on. There we go. it's on the direct inject. So this capacitor here is to do with the direct inject. So unless there's any leakage on it, I'm going to leave that. It's not in a massively important position, and if it's not leaking, then he should be fine. I've tested the screen resistors, and they are perfectly in spec, so we have not got to worry about those. That's good. And every resistor in this amp is in spec. It's unbelievable for carbon comps. So I don't know whether these are a better quality carbon comp or what they are, but wherever they've come from, I'd like to find the source for them because they are wonderful. So everything in this amp really is top drawer, and the only thing we've changed is the capacitors for, you know, the big electrolytics for obvious reasons, and we're going to change these just for sound quality. And providing there's no, as I say, there's no leakage onto any of the grids, this amp will be good to go. Of course, we have got to mend the reverb as well. There's a problem with the reverb, which we'll look at, but we'll look at that when we've got all this cap business finished. Right, so we're going to fire this amp up, and we've got the capacitor. Obviously, we've got the big coupling capacitors in, and as I've said, I'm going to do the others when I've fired it up and we've checked that these are okay. But there's a bit of a problem here I've just noticed, is this IEC socket here. It's just gave way on the bottom. The screws are still in, and the back bracket's still there. It's just this base part that goes in. It's just worn out. It's split at the bottom there, so we'll need to just put another one of those in. It's no big deal. Right, so let's get this fired up. So we've got it on the variac, and I'm just going to put a few volts on it, just about 15-20 volts, and we're just going to have a check round and see what we've got. Probably nothing if I haven't switched it on. Yes, so we've got 40 volts there. $20 volts. Yeah, let's see what we've got here. Yeah. Yeah. And here. Yeah. Yeah, so we've got voltage there. Yeah, so we've got some voltage on there. Just check the current meter. And yeah, so everything looks good there. We'll just stick a bit more voltage on, I think. Yep, 106. Excuse that noise, that's the rain on the roof. So we've got 106. Let's see if I move my hand. Actually, let me just tip this up a little bit as well, so you can see that on there. So we've got 166 volts on there. What we got on this one? Oh, that's grand. We get nothing on that, will we? 163. So we've got 100 volts now going into this amp off the mains. We've got 208 volts on there, and that's beginning. Is that beginning to drop? Yep, I can hear a bit of sound. Yes, already we've got sound. Well, we got 118 volts going through there. Well, that's the reverb that's making that humming. Blimey, that's the treble control. Wow. You probably can't hear that even if I turn the volume full up. Just listen to that. There's some scope on that. Well, that's good. So we've got voltage going on there. Sorry, we've got sound going on there. Just go up a bit more, 140. Now we've got on there. On 95. 292. All looking good. 219. That's looking very good. And again, that humming is the reverb, although that doesn't seem so bad. But then we have only got 140 volts on the main, so that'll obviously get worse. Wondering if that could be a tube, you know. So 164 volts we've got now coming into this amp, and I'm just going to check on this pot, see if there's any DC coming in there, because we've got that going on. That will be coming off. Very difficult to see where that's coming from. No, there's no DC leakage on there at all. So that must just be a dirty pot then. But always pays to check. So 217 milliamps we're drawing. Bring it up some more. We've got 190 volts on there now. Turn the volumes down. 386 on there. .484 volts. Which is about what we had before, 480. So there we go. Let's turn the volumes back up now. Very strange things happening with that. Right, so that's all looking good. One of the reasons why I do so much work and then run the amp up is because if I do all the capacitors and anything else I find that needs doing, and then when I fire it up there's a problem, I've got to go through all of the work that I've done. So if I've got a problem now, really I've just got to backtrack through any of the, you know, little work I've done here, which is just replacing those 4 capacitors. Although they're a bit of an handful to fit those, because of the way they've put the brackets underneath, and there's quite a over on these with the dropping resistors going across them and things, so a bit tricky, but we've got that done, and this is all looking good now. Most excellent. Can't wait to get this up on the 4x12 and give it a blast. So I'm going to change these capacitors now. I'm just going to turn this off, cut the power, well, and we're just going to check that the capacitors have drained. They should have done, because we've got bleed resistors on there, but on the ones in series, but we're going to check, because a lot of voltage in this amp. Yeah, 7 volts. Let's go to the main. 7 volts. Yeah, that's good. Always check on something this size. You've got like 480 volts there. You don't want to snap off of that, even if it's just what's left in the capacitor. So now we've got those done. These are the capacitors that we're going to use, and if we just see how close we can get that. These are Vichys, only the best for this amplifier. So these will replace these capacitors here. I would guess a lot of these are coupling capacitors, bypass capacitors on the stages. That one certainly is, and these 3 are. Not sure what these 2 are doing. Now, I had quite a bit of information on this amplifier from various subscribers, and I'm really grateful for all the stuff that people sent in. There was loads of it, and loads of people owning these amps. There was even one guy who had one of these imported to the States. And I also had a guy contact me through email, a guy named Gilly. And Gilly runs the Facebook page for Burman amps, and used to run the Burman website, not the main business website, the tribute site for them. And he sent me quite a bit of information, but and also he sent me some contact details for a guy in America who has traced this circuit out and's got a schematic for it. So yes, that's I think that's where we are with this. So I think now I'm going to go off, finish this recap off. We've got to replace this because that's broken. It's just worn out, and it has. When we get that out, we'll have a look at that. But it's split at the bottom. No big deal. It's just tired. And then we need to look at this pilot light as well. Right, we've got this amp recapped now. So we'd obviously, last time we looked, we'd done the bigger ones. We've now done the we just get a pen because it is switched on, so we need something plastic. So we've got these caps in, the coupling caps, the bypass capacitors. And what I've done with these, just zoom in a bit, I've cut the old ones off, and I didn't want to start trying to unsolder the old ones, and because they've been wrapped around quite a few times, and then I've got the iron on it for too long. And as I pointed out before, there's a green wire running along here, and the longer I hold the iron on these terminals, the more chance I am of burning through the insulation of that. And you're pulling on these with the pliers, and it just don't make sense. They just get broken. So I've actually wrapped around on the outside terminals with these, and just put them across, so it's just saves damaging these boys. Something that Brad Lindsay said, the guitarologist, about, you know, these vintage amps where when they've got tags like this, you pull it on them and he cuts them off, or he'll J-hook them, and some people don't like that. Personally, I think that's a good idea. There's no point destroying this board, is there? Because it can't be replaced. You know, you've got to be careful with these terminals, and they'll break out these holes easy if you pull it on them as well. So that's how I've done that with those. And this bias cap here, which is for the bias. I have sorry about my finger there. I've actually increased that slightly. It's now 47 microfarad at 160. It was 22 at 60, 22 at 100. Now it's 47 at 160. And what I've done with that is there was a couple of spare lugs, but they've been wired across, so they were connected to the bias terminals. So what I've done is I've used those new lugs and just brought it across to those. So that's done and in, and now we are ready to, we're going to bias this amplifier up. Still got this bit of scratching on this pot, mind you, here, if we look, although not as bad. And that seems to be worse when that volume's turned full up. Yeah. But it's clearing now, it's not as bad. So things have improved there a little bit as well. So we're going to bias this amplifier up now. Now if you remember we'll just move that back again, sorry, so you can see. So you remember when we did part 1 on this, we checked the bias, it was biased at 7 watts, which why it didn't sound particularly great. So what I'm going to do, as I said before, now still got the original EL34s that came with it, and we are going to put some KT77s in this amp, but I'm going to just quickly bias up these EL34s, and then we're going to go and have a listen to it on the 4B12, and then I'm going to put the KT77s in, bias those up properly, and then we'll have a listen to those. And then the only things we've got left to do, we've got to look at this IEC socket that's loose. The pilot light has come back on. So I actually just gently touched that with the plastic end of the screwdriver gently, and it just came back on. I think it's something inside of it. And then the other thing we've got to mend is the reverb as well, which now isn't humming quite so much since we've changed those capacitors. So I don't know, that may actually, it might be a tube, I don't know. We've got to look at that, but in the meantime we'll focus on biasing this amp up, and then we'll have a listen. So I'm going to do that now. So something's missing on this amp. How many hours have I spent working on this amp? This is the second video of it, so we've already had one video. There's something missing. There's no HT fuse on this amplifier, or I've not found one yet. So we've got one fuse over there, but that's the mains fuse for the AC power coming in, but I don't see an HT fuse on this amp. How bizarre. So I don't know about that. I'm gonna have to scratch my head on that one and have a think. In the meantime though, I have biased these EL34s up, and they are not well matched at all. There's about 4 watts difference between them, so it's only a rough bias, but we've biased it up, so we're going to have a listen now. Right, we've got this beast on the 4B12s, so we're ready to have a listen. So we're going to start with it clean at the minute. much better. It does. Much brighter. So obviously changing those bypass capacitors, it's funny really, because when I changed those bypass capacitors, even when the amp was running idle, you could hear the difference. So they must have been well shot. The reverb has still got its bit of a problem, but that could be because it's just disconnected. We need to look at the reverb. Of course we can't look at that till we've got it back in its cabinet, because it has that unique plug on there. Sounds gorgeous. Let's see what it sounds like now, more overdriven. So we need to back this gain 3 down. And we need to turn up these. The amp's also a lot louder, of course, because now it's not biased at 7 watts. Whoa, that is loud. It's obviously going to be a bit louder on this 4x12 because we've got 4 speakers going at it instead of 1. Oh, that's a monster. That's a monster. So I tend to find this need this mid. Ooh, tend to find you need this mid control quite a long way down, and you get a really nice tone. And you can add a bit of bass in there. It does get a bit faulty if you put too much of that mid in the bass. And the thing is, the bypass capacitors on these stages are all 100 microfarad, so it's quite high really. And that's probably why it just takes a little bit of finding the sweet spot in the controls. So when I biased this amp, the HT voltage was at 471. So remember, it was at 481 when it was biased at 7 watts. So that's still quite high, 471. For those tubes though, they'll stand a lot more than that. I think they'll stand nearly 800 volts on the L34 if I remember. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Sounds more. Right, so I've got these EL34s out, and that one says debanks. So anybody know that? No, I've never heard of that before. So I've never heard of this one either, Colomar. So anybody know anything about Colomar? Obviously it's a valve distributor. So these could be anything. Columar and DeBanks. Right, let's move on to something more delightful. So these are the KT77s, the JJs. And there we go. So that's what's going in. We need to clean those tube sockets though before we put them in. Let's get the other one. Those are really good quality tube sockets. Right, we'll turn it over and we'll make a start of biasing it. Right, we've got it turned over now, and before we start we need to turn that bias preset cold, because some tubes draw more current than others, and we don't want this coming on and they're drawing like 25 watts, because I don't want to. So we're going to put that right down there. And now the bias is really cold on it, and then we can work his way up. It's the safest way of doing it. We don't want to damage those tubes at all, because they cost a lot of money. Right, and now all we need to do is plug it in, because it always works better when it's plugged in. Wow, look at that IEC though. We need that, really is. Never seen one go like that before. Let's just make sure there's bias on there. Yep, -79, -80, so that's really cold. Right, we're back with this Burman, and we've got some problems with this amp, and I'm not sure whether it's the tubes, the KT77s, or it's the amp. So I had a feeling something wasn't quite right. So I swapped the coupling capacitors in case they were leaking, to be sure. This resistor was out of spec. Must have missed that the first time. That was about 50k out, about 25k out of spec, not a million miles. So I've swapped that, matched those up, just to make it right, not necessarily to do with the bias as such. But this is running away. This side is running away slowly, but it is doing. So when I first put that in, I had a volts drop over that side of the output transformer was about 1.4, 1.5. It's steadily crept up to 2.1. This side is at 1.3. That's what it is now. I'd actually got this side biased at about 16.6, and this side is now up to 25. So I've switched the amp off, obviously. I'm going to swap the tubes round and see if we've got a faulty tube. So I thought if I swap these, then I'm 100% sure that we've got no leakage there, but we still got problems. And there was something just didn't seem right about those from the start when I fired it, even with the EL34s. To be honest, I always prefer to swap these when they go into the output tubes, because the tubes are so expensive now. For the sake of putting a couple of new coupling caps in there, because it's not just whether they're leaking now, is it? It's whether it's leaking in 6 months' time. If somebody starts gigging this amp regularly, then. But there's also another problem with this amp, and it had a bit of a hum on it when it came in, but of course it wanted recapping. So we have got a bit of a hum when the volumes are turned down. Now I can't say we're particularly short on smoothing. We've got 110 microfarads there on the first node. These are 32s. So I don't know whether we, although we don't have a choke on this amp. That's one thing we don't have, which you normally find on bigger amps like this. You normally find a choke. So there's no choke on it. So we're just waiting for those tubes to cool down now, and then we're going to swap them over and see what we get. Right, so swap the tubes round. So now it's a case of seeing what we get. Right, so if we check the volts drop across this side, now this has got the tube in that was running away. We've got 1 volt across there. If we check this side, we've got 1.2. So now got more on that side than that at the moment. But now that's also noticeable. Now this amp's quiet again. So it had a distinct hum when it was down, when it was turned down. Right, see what we've got now. So that's dropped to about 1. Let me just alter this. There, that's it. So we've got just shy of 1 volt drop there. And a bit of trouble getting a reading off of here. It's not very clean. 1.1 on this side. But in the case of this, so that's looking right. And that's now 1.1. So I think it's beginning to look like that there is a problem on this side, isn't there? And I'm wondering whether it's that tube socket. 1.149. Yeah, that one's staying pretty stable, look. But that's now creeping up, and still creeping up, now pushing up towards 1.6. And this is what I'm beginning to wonder now. This amp was only biased at 7 watts when it came in. Is that why? Is that why someone turned the bias down? Was there a fault on this amp somewhere? Is there a problem? Beginning to look that way, isn't it? But if you try and bias this amp at 70%, it won't have it. Seems to have stabilised though. But it is creeping up towards 1.7 slowly. So let's just do the maths on that again. .28 milliamps. So what have we got? What plate voltage have we got? We have 482. 13.55. I've got that now. So the other one will be less than that because it's, remember, the transformer's perfectly matched and we've only got about a volt drop, 1 volt drop across that the other side of the transformer. So 13.55, 25 milliamps. That one's biased at 12.1 watts. So 12 watts, 13 watts. So not too bad. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ease that up a bit now and just see. You have to be careful with this pot as well, you know, because I think it's not quite right for this amp because you only have to turn it a tiny bit. You know, if they were both running away, I could maybe look at that pot and think, is there something wrong with that? But it's only one of them that's running away, or was running away. So now I've got, I mean, look how little I turned that pot. Look, now already we're up to 1.6 volts there. So let's look at the other side. 1.68. So at that point now, they now seem a bit closer. So let's go for the, that's 40 milliamps. Still about the same plate voltage. That's 19 watts. You see how I barely moved that? Look, it's gone from 13 to 19. So I don't like that. I don't like that either. That preset. I'm not impressed with that. I think that's the wrong value for this bias set out. So something's wrong, because this amp is deathly silent now. There is absolutely no background noise when the volumes are turned down. But when those tubes were in the other way, I'd got a distinct hum when the volumes were down. That's the 39 milliamps. So we seem, let's try this side again, 1.58. So something now seems to have stabilised. And the only thing that we've done is swap those tubes around, and now they've stabilised. But that noise, the hum's gone that I had. So I'm wondering if it's something with those tube sockets. Yeah, this amp's as quiet as a mouse. Funny, you know, because I noticed that humming before with this amp when the other tubes were in. But that's just silent now. I think another thing I'm going to look at as well, and that was another thing that a subscriber pointed out, was this ground here and this absolute thick coat of paint that this chassis's got, and whether that was completely clean under there. Now, I had a close look at that and it looks like it has been scraped back. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to let it cool down, and then I'm going to inspect those tube sockets, or this tube socket here, and just have a look at it and see what condition it's in and what the pins are like. Give it another clean. Right, so I thought I'd just take that ground up and check. So you can see that has been cleaned around it. It is down to the bare metal. It's only just though. I think we can probably do a bit better than that. I think I might I think I'm going to redo that. Just took a bit more paint off and just re-cleaned it. I've got a slight hum in the speaker. Didn't have any hum before when we looked at it, and then the time before that was off camera, we had a lot of hum. 1.39, so that's running away. Look, it's gradually running away. The other side is 1.15. And that's now 1.39 almost. Just pipped there, look. Yeah, 1.4. So last time we checked it was 31 milliamps. And now it's 33.7 milliamps. Screen resistors, check out. They're in writing tolerance almost identical, those two screen resistors. 16.2, that's biased at now, that's at now. So they're also, if you notice, since we last plugged this in, there seems to be a slight reduction in bias, and I'm beginning to wonder whether that preset pot as well is a bit iffy. Right, we've still got the slight hum, but I've cleaned this pot, giving it a really good clean, and it does seem to be working a bit better now. Maybe there was something caught underneath that tracker there. I don't know. So we've got 1.18 on that side, and we have got 1.4. 1.42 on that side. I'm still not convinced though, because I had more on that side to start off with when I swapped the tubes around. I've still got more on that side. I should, if it was the tubes, I'd expect to see more on this side, and we know this transformer's well matched, as I've said, so I'm still not 100% sure that this amp is right. That's very slight hum, which isn't as severe as it was before, but it's still there. before I actually reseated that tube, that was gone. Reseated it a second time and it's back again. So we've got 1.5 on there now. We've got 36 milliamps. That sounds about right, doesn't it? 482. 17.4. I don't know how I do it. So that is working much better now. So that's good. 1.264. 14.6. So all of a sudden we've now got a bit of a discrepancy. We've got 14.6 and 17.4. That's 3 watts. We didn't have 3 watts before. So something's wrong. There's something definitely wrong somewhere with this amp. So I think the thing now to do with this is to have this on test for a period of time. I've also had a look at this pilot light and it's a sealed unit. So the only way to fully repair, I mean it's on now, the only way to fully repair that is to swap the whole unit, and it's quite a strange looking item. So we'd have to look into that with a bit more detail. It also wants tightening up just a little bit more. It wasn't tight enough and I've just got it reasonably tight, but it needs a bit more attention. Right, we've got this IEC out and you can see what's happened there. It's just broken there, just worn out. So we need to replace that. Don't anybody suggest gluing it. That's gone. So we need to find a new one of those. Let's have a look what we've got. Right, I've just found one here, been used on a project, but it's in good order. So we're going to fit that one. Right, we've got this on the 4x12, and I thought what we'd do with this is we'd give it a bit of a blast, try and heat those tubes up a bit, get some current flowing through them, and then just test and see if we have got that running away problem. So the first thing I notice with these KT77s is this amp's much cleaner, much cleaner. Wow. That's why it's called an high frequency control. Do have to drop the bass out on this because those 100 microfarad bypass capacitors are so hot, that's quite high. Sounds tons better. Can you remember when we first plugged this in part 1 and it was biased at 7 watts? It's got some life now. It'll stand the full gain now, where it wouldn't before. It just sounded awful. But now it'll stand the full gain. Probably just put a bit more pressure. So it's got much more headroom now. Now the bias is set, and those KT77s are a superb bit of kit. Somebody had actually put that in the comments, saying that they're quite a monstrous tube, and they're not far wrong. So we just couldn't get those up before and get even a reasonable sound. It was just sounded terrible. But that's really tight. Taking gain 2 off the stop now. That sounds awesome. That is really tight distortion. That is a beast. Once you get those gains down, you can back the treble off a bit. What a beast. What a superb bit of kit that is. Right, what we need to do now is I just need to check that voltage drop across the transformer and just see if it's altered dramatically now. We've had a good blast through it. So I've got these out for the reverb, and if you can see inside there, you can see that moving around. They've got like a rubber insert, and that's rotten as a July pear. Right, I've got it back in its geese. So let's have a look. So I'm not going to bother filming repairing the reverb. We need a couple of phono plugs, and they're just, you can see what's happened to the rubber in those. They've just corroded away. So we'll fix that another time. I've got to order those phono plugs, so, and I want to get this video out. There's plenty of people done reverb repairs online. So we've got signal and everything going through those cables. It's just the phono plugs that are tated. The reverb unit might be, mind you, but we won't know that until we've got the plugs on. But in the meantime, we are plugged into this and we're going to give it a blast. So let's clean it up a bit. To say this amp sounded phenomenal on the 4x12, whilst it sounds pretty good on this speaker. Thanks for watching, and you all take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye bye for now.